A New York Times piece, just the latest example of Democrat voters and Democrat establishment not too thrilled with the current crop of candidates for 2020. Hey, everybody. I'm Chad Hasty, host of the Chad Hasty Show. Chairs weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. And you can follow me on Twitter at Chad Hasty Radio. Okay, so story from the New York Times written by Jonathan Martin. When a half dozen Democrat donors gathered at the Whitby Hotel in Manhattan last week, the dinner began with a discussion of which presidential candidates the contributors liked. But as the conversations among influential Democrats go often these days, the meeting quickly evolved into a discussion of who was not in the race but may be able to be lured into the race. Would Hillary Clinton get in? The contributors wondered. How about Michael Bloomberg, the former New York mayor? One person even mused about whether Michelle Obama would consider a late entry into the race, according to two people who attended the event, which was hosted by the progressive group American Bridge. The story from the New York Times continues. Since the last debate, just anecdotally, quote, I've had 5 or 6 people ask me, is there anyone else? Said Leah Doherty, a longtime Democrat who's run 2 of the party's recent conventions, with doubts rising about the former Vice President Joe Biden's ability to finance a multi-state primary campaign, persistent questions about whether Senator Elizabeth Warren's viability in the general election, and skepticism that Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana, can broaden his appeal beyond white voters. Democrat leaders are engaging in a familiar rite, fretting about who is in the race and longing for a white knight to enter the contest at the last minute. Now, the New York Times paints this as this is what happens in Democrat politics. Democrats get a little bit scared. They get cold feet about their candidates and their potential matchups against a Republican, and they want someone to come in and save them. Listen, folks, I can almost guarantee you that if the Democrats could convince Michelle Obama to get off the sidelines and enter the race, they would love it if Michelle Obama would jump into this thing. Let's be honest. Joe Biden has been a horrible frontrunner. He's been a weak frontrunner, and he's not who the new Democrats want. When I talk about the new Democrats, I'm talking about the far left, progressive, Democrat socialist candidates. They don't want Joe Biden. They're so sick and tired of Joe Biden. Joe Biden does not fire them up. Bernie Sanders scares the hell out of the establishment, and he really isn't offering anything new. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Warren seems to have a little bit of an edge on Bernie Sanders, and I think Elizabeth Warren right now is in the lead to get the nomination among Democrats, but I don't think she'll play well in the general election. And then after those three, who do they have? The guy from South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg? Okay, well, can he really put together a serious presidential campaign against Donald Trump? Can Kamala Harris? Kamala has been collapsing even in her home state of California. Who else do you have out there? Amy Klobuchar? Beto O'Rourke? I don't think so. None of these candidates are catching fire with the people, with the voters, and none of them, in my opinion, is doing anything to show that they can really match up well against President Donald Trump. Listen, if you go back and you listen to the podcast, it's about an hour-long podcast from David Plouffe, his interview with Hillary Clinton. What made news everywhere in the nation was Hillary Clinton's takedown of Tulsi Gabbard, calling her a Russian asset. But there was so much more in that interview. When I listened to that interview, I found myself laughing because without really saying it, both Hillary Clinton and David Plouffe, they were acting as though, man, this is going to be a really tough race for Democrats, and they don't have that one person that they can all rally around right now, and that Donald Trump is going to have a big-time advantage in his reelect. And of course he will. The economy's going fine. People are doing well, and they don't want a socialist as president of the United States. Listen, I don't think that Democrat insiders necessarily want Hillary Clinton to jump in. I don't really even think they want Michael Bloomberg to jump into this thing. But if they could, if Democrat insiders could make it happen, you better believe they would love to have Michelle Obama or Oprah jump into the Democrat field to take on President Donald Trump. The Democrats are nervous. That's why they're pushing this whole impeachment issue. They're nervous that their candidates will not be able to take on Donald Trump. They don't have somebody who can unite the Democrat Party right now, other than somebody who can say, go vote for me because I'm not Donald Trump. Well, guess what? I brought this up on the show earlier today. In battleground states, okay, Midwestern states, battleground states, places like even Florida and Pennsylvania, in your battleground states, if your nominee is Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, all President Trump has to do is say, listen, you may not like everything I do. You may not like my tweets. You may not like how I talk all the time. But do you want capitalism or do you want socialism in the United States? Do you want to go down the road of socialism? Because that's what Bernie will give you. That's what Elizabeth Warren will give you. Me? No, I don't think so. You may not like everything I do, but you'll much prefer capitalism compared to what these folks want. Tune in to the Chad Hasty Show weekday mornings, 8:30 to 11 a.m. Central Time on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO.